Hey guys, it's Sarah. Thank you so much for watching. So I'm really excited for today's video. I'm going to be sharing 5 tips that I have for avoiding buying too much makeup or excessive makeup. This is something that's been kind of a learning process for me, and over the past couple of years of project panning and kind of getting to more of a curated collection, I feel like I've learned a lot about how to make intentional purchases when it comes to makeup and beauty products. So this video is actually my first collab video. This video is in collaboration with my friend Heidi over at HeidiKMakeup. She has been one of my favorite YouTubers for a really long time now. In fact, even before I started my channel, she was one of my favorites. She does a lot of great videos about project panning and making practical makeup purchases and having a curated collection, and she's also cruelty-free, so I think you guys will really like her. I hope that you will check out her channel if you haven't already. I'm really excited to hear what tips she has for buying less makeup, and she just inspires me so much, so I really hope you guys will check her out. I'm so excited that she just recently did start posting again on her beauty channel, and she also has several other channels as well. She has a parenting channel, she's got 2 adorable little kids, and a family vlogging channel as well. So if those kinds of things interest you, I'll link those in the description box too, so you can check those out. But she's just awesome. I love her. I'm so excited to do this collab with her. So let's go ahead and get into the 5 tips that I have. Now, of course, if you love collecting makeup and that's what makes you happy and you love having a large collection, this advice certainly isn't for everyone. But if you are trying to get to a place where you have a more pared down collection, maybe you're trying to curb your spending a little bit, maybe you feel like you're spending too much money on makeup, hopefully these tips will be helpful. The first tip is to start a project pan. Even if you don't have a YouTube channel or a social media presence when it comes to makeup and beauty, I still think it's a really good idea to start a project pan. You don't even have to call it a project pan. You can just select a few products in your collection that you would like to try to use up. Whether it's a foundation or a blush or even an eyeshadow palette, which can be pretty challenging, so I would recommend starting with products that you are able to use every day without much of a problem. But regardless, there are tons of videos on YouTube about project panning, and it's a really great way to really understand just how long it takes to use up a single product. Once I started project panning, I've been doing it for actually about 2 years now. Once I started project panning, my perspective when it came to purchasing makeup completely changed. And I know project panning isn't for everyone, but it is a really great way to focus on using what you have as opposed to always feeling like you need to buy new things. And once I got into the groove of project panning, for me, I actually got more excited about using what I have and using things up, and less excited to purchase new products. And when I found myself at the store, like browsing makeup, it was a lot harder for me to purchase a new product, especially knowing how long it would take to use it up. Once you kind of start project panning, at least for me, I started kind of realizing that it's my responsibility to actually use up everything I purchase, because that way I'm getting my money's worth. Even if it's not an expensive product, I still really like to use things up, and so that makes me a lot more hesitant to buy new makeup. It's not to say I don't ever buy new makeup, because I still love testing out new products, and I'm sure a lot of us do, but it's definitely made me it's made me think a lot more before I purchase something, whether it's expensive or if it's drugstore. So the next tip is to research the product before you purchase it. It's really easy to just make an impulsive purchase if you're like at Ulta or Sephora and you see something that intrigues you, but I would really suggest actually researching the product before you buy it. Read reviews online, watch YouTube videos about it, watch tutorials, watch people actually using the product, and really ask yourself if it's something that is going to be useful to you. A lot of times you might find that once you've done some research and you read, maybe it's not best for your dry skin, or maybe it's something that's better suited for a different skin type or a different skin tone. That way you can kind of figure out if it's actually something that's going to be useful to you. That might sound kind of obvious, but I think a lot of times we forget, and like I said, it's really easy to just make an impulsive purchase. So when you're researching the product, I think it's important to ask yourself a few questions. Number 1 would be, how long will it take to use this up? Is it something that I can realistically use up before it goes bad? If it's a primer, do you already have 5 primers in your collection, some of which might do the same thing as the one you're thinking about purchasing? That way it makes it to where you have to kind of ask yourself if it's going to fit into your collection. Maybe you only have 1 primer and it's a mattifying primer and you're wanting to try out a luminous primer. In that case, it might actually be really useful and it might be a really good addition to your collection, so maybe it would be a good idea to purchase it. Another question to ask yourself is, can I dupe this with something that I already own? A lot of times you can, especially if it's something like a blush. Blushes, I find a lot of them kind of go on looking the same. Like for me, I have like 5 blushes and they're all like a light peachy pink. So I'm not necessarily on a no buy when it comes to blushes, but I'm definitely trying not to purchase any more because I feel like I can pretty much achieve the same look already when it comes to blush. And then another thing to ask yourself is, when will I wear it? Is it something that you can see yourself wearing to work every day? Is it something that you'd probably only wear when you're going out or like going to a special event or something? Is it something that you are only going to wear when you're like experimenting with makeup? Or like for me, I don't really like to wear lip gloss. I'm just not really a lip gloss kind of person. Or same thing with setting sprays. Those are products that I'm just not really that into, and I know that it's something that I'm probably not going to feel excited to reach for all the time. So those are products that I feel like it's probably not a good idea for me to purchase those. So just ask yourself when you'll wear it, how often you'll wear it. Sometimes it can be good to purchase something that you may not wear very often, if it's like a colorful eyeshadow palette or something that you're just gonna buy like for fun to kind of experiment with, and it's not necessarily like an everyday product. Those are fine to purchase, but just keep in mind, especially the price point with those kinds of products, I usually like to go for a more budget-friendly brand, like Wet n Wild, for example. If I want to try out a really colorful lipstick, I'll usually go for the Wet n Wild like $1.99 Mega Last lipsticks, because I know that I'm not spending a ton of money on those, but it's still something that I would like to try out and just kind of play around with. So, and then one tip for if you're looking at palettes, specifically eyeshadow palettes, my advice for that would be to go through and look at every single shade in the palette and ask yourself, be honest with yourself, how many of the shades you're actually going to use, and also how many of the shades you already have in your collection. A lot of times, especially with neutral palettes, if you already have quite a few palettes in your collection already, you'll find that there's quite a bit of overlap between palettes, especially when it comes to neutral shades. Like, there's usually going to be a light, warm brown transition shade, and there's usually going to be like a light kind of off-white brow bone highlight. There might usually be a matte black or a dark matte brown. Like, these are shades that we probably have multiples of in our collection. And then a lot of times there might be shades that you know that you're probably never gonna use. I hardly ever use black eyeshadow, so that's one shade where I can say, yeah, that I'm probably not gonna use that very often. Or I already have that in another palette, or I already have a single of that, so I don't really need that. So go through every shade in the palette and ask yourself how many of them are A, unique to your collection, and B, shades that you can actually see yourself using. And if you go through the whole palette and only, let's say there's 12 shades in the palette and only 3 of them are unique to your collection and ones that you know you'll use, maybe you don't need to buy the whole palette. Maybe instead go for like some single pan shadows that you could put in a Z palette. But yeah, I think that a lot of times you can look through your collection and find things like that that you already have. Now, of course, if you don't have any eyeshadow palettes and you're looking to kind of build a collection, then that's going to be different. But if you're someone who already has 8 or 10 palettes in your collection already, it'll probably be pretty easy to look through and say, okay, I don't really need this. Now, if you're a palette collector, then that's totally different. I mean, then you know yourself, you know that you enjoy collecting, and that's totally fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. But like I said, you know yourself, you know what you need and what makes you happy. Really try to think and be intentional with purchases, especially with eyeshadow palettes, because those take up a lot of space. So, and for me, other types of palettes like blush palettes, highlight palettes, contour palettes, those I find to be completely unnecessary for me, because if I'm using a contour or a bronzer, I'm really only needing one. Same with blush. I only ever use one blush at a time, so I don't need like 5 or 6 blushes all together to choose from. And it could be helpful for travel, but I don't know. If blush is something that you get really excited about and you like having a variety of different colors all in one place, then that would be really useful to you. But for me, I feel like a single blush and a single bronzer and a single highlight is usually better for me, or at least maybe a duo, but not a whole palette. That's just something for me personally that I've kind of discovered about myself, but it's going to be different for everyone. Another tip, I already kind of touched on this, but a great place to look for dupes is the website Temptalia, or Temptalia, I don't know how to pronounce it, I should, but that's a really, really helpful website. They pretty much for every product you could imagine, they have reviews and also dupes. And they'll tell you exactly how similar those dupes are. So let's say there's a single shadow from ColourPop that you're interested in. You could look that up and figure out if, like, what shades in your collection are similar, and if you actually already have a dupe of it, then you can decide, okay, I don't need this. That's a great way to kind of figure out what you do need, what you don't already have in your collection. A lot of times we have dupes in our collection, we don't even realize it. That's really helpful for me, and that's a resource that I really only just recently discovered, but it's been really helpful, and it's also just interesting to see what products are dupes for each other that we didn't even realize. So, and even if it's not an exact dupe, a lot of times you can still kind of get the same effect with it. So, and the last tip I have is when you want to make a purchase, whether you're browsing online or you're browsing in the store, when there's something that really gets your attention that you think, like, I might like to purchase this, write it down and wait a week. After that week has gone by, you've been using the makeup you already own, ask yourself after that week has gone by if you still feel like you need it. And if you do, then go ahead and buy it. After you've, asked yourself all these other questions, like, is there a dupe in my collection? Do I need this? When will I wear it? All that stuff. Then you can maybe decide to go ahead and purchase it, but 9 times out of 10 you'll probably realize that you don't actually need the product, and you may not actually want it as much as you thought you did when you first had the impulse to buy it. So that's a really helpful tip too. I actually kind of learned that tip from this social media account called The Financial Diet. They have a YouTube channel and they have an Instagram that I follow, and they have a lot of great tips, not specific to makeup and beauty, but just about being intentional with your finances in general. And so I definitely recommend following them. They're super helpful. I also really enjoyed their book that came out earlier this year. So that's a great resource, especially if you're wanting to kind of be a little bit more organized with your money and your spending. I definitely recommend that resource, not just for makeup, but for just life in general. So anyway, those are my tips for avoiding buying excessive makeup. I hope that was helpful. Again, I really hope you guys will go check out Heidi's channel if you haven't already, and I'm really excited to see what tips she has come up with for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure you subscribe to my channel and also subscribe to Heidi's channel, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!